Well, it's looking like a case of 2 from 5 in the League Two dogfight, isn't it? You've got Newport and Harrogate who have been long-term incumbents of that bottom two, but signs of resurgence from Harrogate with that 2-1 victory over Cambridge, and Newport with a solid display against Grimsby at the weekend have given those two teams a little bit of hope that they can catch the likes of Barrow, who have lost all 6 of their games in 2026 in the league, Crawley, who lost 3-0 to Cambridge in midweek, and Shrewsbury, who beat aforementioned Barrow 2-1, but still very much have plenty of work to do after their first win under Gavin Cowan. We're going to be aiming to discuss all of those 5 teams on this summer deep dive. So if you like what we do here, you can do us a massive favour and get subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. And if you've been following our stuff for a while and you'd like to give us that extra bit of support, we do also have a members only option. I'm going to be recording weekly general EFL chats with Simon Lillibury purely for my members. So if you'd like to subscribe and help the channel make it as good as it can be, then there is the option for you to do just that. For now, I'm delighted to be joined by Jamie from the 1912 Exiles podcast of Newport County, and we will hopefully be joined by Danny Shepherd, my co-host, shortly as well. Jamie, thanks for joining us. What's your feeling on Christian Fuchs so far, and do you think he's going to keep Newport County in the Football League?
Oh, big question to kick us
off.
I
like to start with the big
ones. Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, I've not been hugely impressed. A lot of the Newport fans, a lot of us on the podcast, we're kind of wondering whether it's the players that he's got at his disposal, or whether it is just the fact that, frankly, Fuchs hasn't got a lot of managerial experience, let alone League Two experience. He's been in charge for about 3 months now, and I struggle to see where survival comes from, if I'm being brutally honest.
Interesting. Do you feel, Jamie, I watched the extended highlights of the Grimsby game, and the one thing that did stand out to me was that there does seem to be a lot more of a realistic approach to things based on the personnel limitations that you've mentioned there. I think at the start of the season, there was this hope of a vision under Hugh Jenkins, and David Hughes was coming in, and Newport, had signed some talented players, and they're hoping to play a bit better football. And now it does feel like the club are on full-on pragmatism mode. Do you think that's going to help Newport increase their chances, at least, of staying up?
Yeah, 100%. Any point that we can get in our last 17 games of the season, we will absolutely take. As you mentioned, it's a bit of a dogfight down at the bottom. So I think a couple of years ago we had Graham Coughlin in charge, just for the second half of the season. So the first 6 months of Hugh Jenkins' reign, and it was very much let's just grind out some wins. It doesn't really matter how pretty it looks. We just need the points on the board, because League Two can be pretty brutal. So yes, totally agree. I'm not really bothered how pretty the football looks. I think the Football League status is just more important at this point.
Talking about extended highlights, I was watching the game against Accrington recently, and I'm kind of going to tag all the teams that I think we're going to talk about tonight in the same way, that defensive indecision, people getting caught between should I, shouldn't I? And I mean, I've been there. I won't go on about Salford. I always crawl by them in somehow, but I have seen it myself with our team in previous seasons, not so much this year. And it just seems to be rife. And I will actually say that, obviously there's a bit of an uptick recently, but probably some of the worst individual errors I probably saw in that game. I don't know if you'd agree.
I 100% agree, and kudos to both of you for watching extended highlights of those games.
The
Accrington game was not our finest hour for sure. Unfortunately, it's been kind of the same old story all season. We've sort of looked good in parts. We might have even had chances to take the lead, or we've just looked solid, and then all of a sudden we just throw it away with a very sort of softly conceded goal, whether it's just being cut open through the middle or just an absolute hospital pass or whatever it might be. And it's just killing us basically throughout the season.
Just on the follow, if I can follow up on that, I think it was the second goal of Accrington, if I remember rightly. You look at that position and you think, well, if the defender's in front of, well, if basically the defender's ball side there and has got it seemingly under control, and I just think, well, how does it end up like it ends up? But it does,
Yeah.
But it's like once you're unlucky, you can't stop being unlucky, can you? It's crazy.
Yeah, we just find ourselves in these odd positions, and we are actually debating this on our last episode, whether, because on paper we look at our back line and we think, oh, these individuals, yeah, they're solid. We've got Matt Baker that's in the middle of the defense, and he's had a lot of experience at this level. Ryan Delaney's come back on loan. We go through the sort of the back line, we think, oh, they look all right, but we actually think it could just be the fact that the midfield in front of them are just giving them some pretty sort of poor options in terms of being able to pass the ball out, because again, that's the vision that Hugh Jenkins wants to do, and maybe that's just putting them under a lot more pressure and leading to those silly mistakes happening. We're trying to figure it out ourselves.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Jamie. The midfield trio of Harrison, Biggins, Sprangler, who is not somebody I'm hugely familiar with, maybe you can inform me, and Ciaran Brennan, who's a centre-half converted into midfield. Granted, Brennan has always been a ball-playing central defender, so not quite like putting a no-nonsense centre-half in midfield, but still a centre-half nonetheless. That instinctively, that as a midfield trio doesn't inspire me very much. I don't think there's anyone in League Two that would necessarily trade who they have for those options.
I mean, that's probably a fair comment. I'd say the three of them have only played together once. Sprangler came in on a deadline day signing, I think on loan from, I want to say Scotland. I think we've had a lot of players from St Johnstone for some reason. We like the look of Biggins. Biggins seems to be putting himself about, and to be honest with you, while he may not be the most coveted central midfielder in the league, it's what we've needed all season. We actually started with a completely different midfield three. Kai Whitmore was released, Cameron Antwi's gone to Gillingham, and we just wanted a bit of bite in midfield, a bit of not necessarily aggression, but somebody who can just kind of be that body who's just there all the time, a bit of a box to box, a bit of a fighter. I like the look of him, and I liked the look of Sprangler in this sort of on his debut for us. Again, I don't know too much about him either, but look, at this stage of the season, transfer window's shut. We've got to pin our hopes on that midfield now for the rest of the season.
So you're actually a little bit more hopeful based on the performance against Grimsby that trio between them could help.
It might be misguided hope, I don't know, but you've got to have hope at this stage.
Exactly.
We're still in with a shout.
Absolutely, yeah. I did notice in the way that you set up against Grimsby that Jed Garner, who played like a 4-5-1, and Jed Garner was basically tracking back when Grimsby came forward on the right hand side. So you've got a striker by trade playing sort of almost covering back. And on the one hand, I go, great for Jed Garner that he's got the work ethic to get up and down and support. And then there's another part of me that thinks, would you want him linking up with Opoku and Spellman as opposed to necessarily having to do so much tracking back at home and maybe trusting the left back to do a bit more?
Well, we've had a lot of issues at left back as well. That's been a bit of our weak spot, and that left hand side really. So I think we looked a lot better last weekend because that left hand side was changed and much improved. I mean, one of the other issues that we have, apart from conceding soft goals and having to sort of figure out a solution in midfield, is just getting that creativity up front. Half the time, I'll be honest, we just don't look like scoring. Just checking the stats, 29 goals in 29 games. It's not fantastic, and I can't even remember who our top scorer is at the moment, but it won't be someone with many. So
Baker Richardson, I think.
Yeah, see, he's not even getting in the side at the minute. So
four.
Yeah, exactly.
Why didn't Baker Richardson get? Because I don't think he was even on the bench, was he? Is he injured at the moment, or?
You know what? I'm not even sure if he's injured. I think Fuchs is trying to sort of get a feel for who he trusts. And I think that's indicative of Kai Whitmore being released as well. Kai Whitmore was pretty much our main starter in midfield at the start of the season. And since Fuchs came in, I think he hasn't started a game since December, and then he was released. So I don't know whether there's some attitude issues there or not. But frankly, we're just looking for like a combination of players up front who can just get the ball in the net for us and make chances out of nothing really. So to go back to your question about Ghana, whoever the two are up front, I think they need to be supporting each other and perhaps the wingers as well, sort of just to get as many chances and get the ball into the box as much as we can, because hopeful sort of punts downfield and just trying to sort of latch onto loose balls is not going to keep us up.
Well, it's funny. Sorry, go on, Danny.
Otherwise, I'll forget, Gab. I promise I'll forget if I can't get it out. It's just it's probably best at the tail end of this segment, so I'm not quite sure it'll be there, but it's just something I wanted to say, that watching all these teams in this dogfight, it's I'm not going to say why yet, but there is a real reason why I think that Shrewsbury may be in worse shape than yourselves. I think they may be attaching themselves to a philosophy that might not work out. So I would say that they are opening themselves up for problems from what I can see. But again, I'll build on that later when we're talking specifically about that team. So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead, Gab.
No, I was just going to pivot back to Kai Whitmore, because it's funny you mentioned that, and maybe some of the decision making that's informing how Christian Fuchs is going about selection. Because when Whitmore signed, I think it was 2024, and he signed from Haverfordwest, where he'd had a really good Europa League or Europa Conference League stint and scored some high profile goals. And it was billed as quite an exciting signing, but I actually spoke to somebody from Haverfordwest who said, yes, he's capable of these amazing individual moments, but he's also somebody who can go missing in games. And you do wonder whether Christian Fuchs, whether schooled under Claudio Ranieri with that sort of Leicester 4-4-2 compact sort of school methodology, if you like, 4-5-1 at the moment, is he actually going for midfielders who he feels are going to scrap and battle for him, like a Harrison Diggins, who might have been out of favour under a previous regime, but actually he's going for players who he feels like he can rely on?
Yeah, I think he's just got to try and I think he spent the first month just trying to figure out who he could trust, who he can rely on. To sort of, to Whitmore's credit, I wouldn't say he necessarily went missing in games. And, I think on his day, like you said, on his day, maybe the consistency just wasn't quite there. I think more broadly, the fact that, you brought up the fact that we signed up with him, Haverfordwest in the Cymru Premier. And, that's a pool we've dipped into time and time again.
Got Will Evans from there, didn't you?
Exactly. I mean, Will Evans worked out for us, but I think, with the best will in the world, a lot of these players are just not going to be of the quality required at League Two level. And we've seen a few sort of leave the club over January in particular and over the last summer, and a few more come in. We signed very promising guy, James Kroll, up front from Pennybont. I haven't seen much of him yet, but, he was top scorer in the league last season, in the Welsh League, and he scored plenty this season. I think it's finding people that the manager can trust, but also finding people who the manager really does feel can perform at this level.
Yeah, I think recruiting from the Welsh Prem, you've got to go for really athletic footballers who are going to give it everything every game, because I think if you go for technical players from that level, there's a sort of pressure then that if they're not able to cope with the demands of the step up to League Two, then actually the technical ability is not going to show anyway. Whereas if they're competitive and can make their presence felt in some way, and you at least have that reliability, that then gives you a platform to do something with them. So that's how I would look at it when it comes to recruiting from that league. I wanted to ask you about Apoku, because I sort of I watched him in the second half in the extended highlights of the Grimsby game, and I kind of had mixed feelings, because on the one hand I went, he looks like a real handful. He's constantly getting in behind, and he's a real pest to defences. I actually thought the penalty he took wasn't the worst miss, because he actually did put it into a decent position. That's fine. But then there was one where he did get into a good position and just tapped it at the goalkeeper, and you're like, oh, come on. So clearly he's I'm not quite sure what to make of him, actually, but he's clearly a work in progress.
Oh, absolutely. And I think when you're signing young players on loan from Premier League academies, that's kind of what you have to you have that give and take, don't you? You have players who can really kick on and probably shine at this level. But then you do have players who just are going to be a bit inconsistent, are going to be a bit rusty in terms of their decision making. It's funny you mentioned the penalties. I'd love to find somebody who can just stick the ball in the back of the net from 12 yards. We're 0 from 3 this season, 3 different penalty takers, 3 different misses. So yeah, if you can send us a penalty taker, we'd happily take one.
With Gab talking about the lad there, though, being a handful, from what I've seen, I was possibly mistakenly thinking that is he a target man? Is he? Because I mean, maybe not. He just looked like he was definitely able to hold his ground, which is unusual for a player in a Premier League academy. That's not the type of player they normally breed. So
interesting. Okay, yeah, maybe he's got a bit more strength than others, but certainly likes to get him behind. So yeah, he could be one to watch. Jamie, yeah, you've kind of answered. You feel like it's an ominous end to the season, especially with some tough fixtures coming up. Then you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of a run of 5 very difficult games at the moment after the Grimsby game. Like I say, we've got 3. We're starting tonight away at Swindon, but we've got 3 aways in the next week. All teams near the top, all teams on form. Our real goal is to end this month still in touch of the safe 22nd place in the league. Really, I flip between having a bit of hope and optimism and just having to sort of resign myself to relegation. So yeah, I don't know where I sit at the minute. At 10 o'clock tonight, when I see the full-time score, maybe I'll have a completely different feeling. But at the moment, I think it's a real uphill battle.
Yeah, tough times ahead for Newport County. Jamie, thanks so much for talking to us, and keep up the great work on 1912 Exiles.
A pleasure.
Cheers, Jamie.
Cheers. So my next guest is Sam Jordan, Crawley Town fan. Sam, thank you for joining us. I have mixed feelings on Crawley Town, Sam, because I always feel like you can create chances. I think you're a really enterprising footballing side, certainly more so than your league position would suggest. But again, we saw it against Cambridge, giving away cheap goals, and you're not going to climb the division in the way that you're hoping to if you keep doing that.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings too, Gab. We kind of went through January, signed 13 players. We got a last-minute winner at Barrow, went on to get 7 points out of 9 after that last-minute winner. And I kind of felt after that last-minute winner, is this the turning point? Are we going to now kind of go on a run and push our way out of the table? But since winning at Harrogate last Saturday, we've then obviously lost at home to Crewe and Cambridge, and it kind of feels back to where we were. And I just think, 6 wins from 31. 15 games to go, 26 points on the board. I looked at the league table last night when I got home 3 years ago when we just stayed up in League Two. How many points we had after 31 games then? And we had 26, but we're in the bottom 2. We're not in the bottom 2 this year, so which is obviously a positive. So are we not in the bottom 2 because the 2 in the bottom 2 are much worse than us? Probably that's the case. So yeah, I look at the fixtures coming up, and I just felt that those 3 home games in a row, we needed to win 2 of them. We only won 1 of them, but and thankfully we beat Barrow and Harrogate. Obviously, the teams around us, if we hadn't, blimey, where are we going to be? Yeah. So it's really difficult at the moment. Obviously, Scott came in and saved us that season I just mentioned. Then obviously took us to Wembley and the heroics that came from then, and obviously he's come back, and there was lots of high hopes this season from the ownership and from Scott himself about promotion. And obviously we find ourselves at the other end, and it's kind of, I think the fan base is a bit split at the moment. I think there's a loyalty towards Scott deserves a chance after what he's done, and I think there's some going, well, how long do we stick for, because is he going to take us down? Yeah, so I think after being back to the window of 13 players, obviously got the backing of the ownership. But yeah, it wasn't good again last night. And I think Scott made some good points in his post-match around. Obviously, Cambridge, the top 3 side, they're a good team, but we didn't take our chances. And we didn't do enough on the ball, and we weren't quick enough. So yeah, now we go into 2 tough away games.
What I was thinking, watching Crawley, because they're such, like Gab said earlier on, it's like, when you look at the teams in this predicament, they're very refreshing to watch. You know, I mean, well, to me anyway, because there's lots of movement off the ball, which is great. Always aiming for high possession. I mean, looking at it, I think going back to November, I think from start of the season to November, you were 61% possession average, which is mind-blowing to me. But obviously, it's intentional, whereas a lot of other teams kind of vary that. But yeah, I really like watching you. But I just wonder if in a situation like this, can football like that, with players who are naturally lacking confidence because of the poor results, how does that work? You know, possession-based football without the confidence to maybe play it as it should be. I don't know. It's just from the outside looking in, really.
Yeah, I think to start with, if we had 3 points for every single opposition fan that said we play good football, we don't deserve to go down, we'd be league champions by now. So it's very frustrating. I think, look, Scott has said before, plan B is do plan A better. But we need to do plan A much better and very quickly. Look, I love watching the brand of football. It was very refreshing. It's interesting. The last time we kind of were really successful was under Steve Evans, and it was a very different brand of football, but it was a winning brand of football. So I don't think the fans care because we were winning. And now we've got the Scott style of football, and it is great to watch. Frustrating at times when last night maybe we're not quick enough with it and getting to final third quick enough. But yeah, it's great to watch the style of football in League Two, and some of the players we've got play it really well. But it also needs a unique style of player to play it. And when you come against teams like Bromley, they just kind of batter you off the park. And yeah, it's interesting. When Scott first came in, he had 6 months, he just kept us up. He kind of just went 4-4-2, let's win enough games and do that. And I've always wondered, will he go back to that? But he 100% won't. And the difficulty is now, for those Crawley fans asking for change, have we got the team to change style? That's the challenge now, isn't it? So yeah, we're in a situation kind of tonight looking at Newport game, praying it's win the win, to be honest, is kind of where I think most Crawley fans' heads are at the moment.
Yeah,
there's one thing to add on that, if I could, Gab. I just want to add this, is that I think it was January 2024, very early January, that we fired Neil Wood at Salford, and he was trying to play an expansive possession-based style, ex-Man United academy coach. Yeah. And we were going down, basically. Yeah. That's why he was fired. Cal Robinson came in. He was known for playing a similar brand of football, but he totally changed it and has stuck with, for almost 2 full years, a very direct brand of brutalist, intense football, although he's now starting to change that with the players he's got. So it's kind of principle versus results, isn't it? But I would imagine if your recruitment's been done correctly for your playing style, there probably aren't the nuggets that Cal found in our team. We had Matt Smith at the time. So Matt Smith was great to play that because we could flick the switch and just start crossing the ball in, and it was absolutely fine. But if you don't have that player within your setup,
it's different with sorry to interrupt you, Danny. It's different with Danilo Orsi, isn't it? Because Matt Smith's a big target man, whereas with Orsi, you can see he's much better when you give the ball to him around the edge of the box. And I do feel with Crawley, like there's moments where Orsi, Lolos, and McCurdy link up, and it really is, can be quite something to watch. But there obviously needs to be an efficiency that Crawley find within that, and that's got to be the first priority.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we let Shamanga go, and look, he didn't set the world light, and I think that was the right decision. But he's gone to Barnet and scored 4 goals in 5 games, and you do kind of, when you're down the bottom, not winning, you question all these things, and you think, well, if he was in a team with Lolos and Darcy, would he have maybe got more chances, and maybe would he be scoring? Because Orsi has come in and not scored yet. Albeit he was working hard, so it's really difficult. And obviously, it's really easy for hindsight, isn't it, to kind of do that? But we've kind of bombed out our club skipper Dion Conroy. He hasn't played now since January the 4th, and hasn't been on the bench. And Theo Fassel's come in and done really well. Obviously, one of your old players at Salford. Yeah. But he went off injured last night. It looks like he's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, hamstring injury. So you think, wow, we've kind of gone for him in the centre of our defensive 3, and now he's out as well. So. Yeah. Concerning times ahead.
Sure.
What do you think of Theo Vassell at Salford, Danny? How do you see him getting on at Crawley when he gets back to fitness?
Well, I mean, my nickname for him was the Sprawler, right? Because his defensive style, he's good in the air generally, and he's relatively quick. And he's very committed. Not the greatest footballer, but I wouldn't expect that. You're not going to get everything at League Two. You're not going to get all your sit list and your Christmas box. Yeah. But I did find when him and Curtis Tilt played alongside each other, it was more play the man, not the ball. Let's sprawl over. That's what for me. That's what it was. There's a lot of kind of dark art stuff going on, but he had spells under various managers when he was at Salford where he would play for like 10 games in a row, and you just think League One's calling for this boy, And from what I've heard from, because I work with a Crawley fan, he said this guy was just he's really, really impressed, and he's going to really be missed. So I can see that. There is a flip side. There are some strange decisions that he makes, but in general, he's 75% of the time a really, really good centre back.
Yeah. Well, I was really surprised when he came in how good he's been considering he's been a free agent.
Yeah.
Really strange how no one picked him up the first half of the season. He comes into us and slots in quite well, and he's a proper defender is probably the way I class him. So the fact he's gone off and we've kind of built the back three around him since the January window, it's concerning.
One thing I'll just add, never play him at right back. I saw that happen. It was probably the most ugly thing that could possibly happen in football, because his body position was wrong, his first touch was wrong, everything was. It was a makeshift for a game or two, but keep him where he's comfortable, right side his centre back, and I think you'd be onto a winner.
I wanted to talk about midfield, Sam, with Crawley Town, because I look at the pairing that you had against Cambridge last time out, and it was Jay Williams and Ronan Darcy. And I would naturally, instinctively think of Ronan Darcy as a more advanced player rather than a number 8, if we're saying Williams is the 6, Darcy's the 8, and Loss is the 10 behind Orsi and McCurdy. And so I'm just wondering if you think, that roaming playmaker, that Liam Kelly type player, do you think Crawley are missing that at the moment in terms of increasing the linkage between the middle and final thirds, and that finding that connectivity?
Yeah, so I think the last couple of games, Jay Williams has played kind of the 6 role by his own, or the pivot role by himself, and then Darcy and Lolos have been behind McCurdy and Orsi. So it's kind of been like a 1, a 2, and a 2.
That's a big list of responsibilities for Jay Williams then in terms of
absolutely. And actually, a lot of fans have kind of criticised Scott about that, saying why is he playing on his own? And some would say, well, we've gone attacking, because we had Max Anderson playing alongside Jay Williams.
I like Max.
He's a really good player, really under the radar. But good player. And then Louis Copley came in a couple of games on loan for Arsenal, really impressed, but then got injured. So, Jay's played on his own last couple of games, and maybe in hindsight that was a mistake. But I think Scott's trying to shoehorn Lolos, Darcy, Orsi, and McCurdy in the team. When he played 3 at the back and 2 wing backs, that's it. He run out of place, didn't he? So, I mean, Jay's a good player. So, and at home, you should really need one pivot, albeit playing against 2 top teams. So, it's difficult. It'll be interesting to see what happens when we go away to Tranmere.
I suppose, I agree. It depends what we define as pivot. I think one pivot is fine from my definition of it, but I would say you want someone who's more like an 8 who can drop in and with a build-up play, but then
Lolos and Darcy drop in, but they're probably Jay is quite isolated on his own, and normally if they drop in, it's a late run rather than be there to get in the way kind of thing.
Interesting. What do you think of because you signed Lewis Richards in January, and then you still got Harry Forster, who's becoming a bit of a stalwart now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think they're the kind of wing backs that you need to sort of open team? Because Barnet play a similar style, but they've got in the equivalent positions people like Ryan Glover and Idris Khani, who are very good at carving teams open, whereas Forster and Richards.
Yeah, well, so part of getting the gang back together, we obviously re-signed Kenan Gordon from Notts County, and he's been playing right back. He didn't play last night, and Forster played there. And then actually, it was Lewis Richards, his first start last night, because we signed Johnny Russell from Ireland, and he's played a few games left back, but he's got a little groin injury, and he's actually quite impressed. He's got a long throw, but he's quite quick attacking. Lewis Richards has played off the bench quite a lot. I wouldn't say he was better than Johnny Russell last night. But it was only his first start, and I know he's had a lot of injuries this season, so probably needs a bit more time. But one of the biggest opportunities this year has been depth at wing back, and now with obviously Gordon, Richards, and Russell coming in, we've now got a bit of depth. Adiemo's not in the picture anymore, and he kind of impressed at the start of the season.
I thought he showed some nice touches, Adiemo.
Yeah, I don't think wing back's his best position. I think the problem is he needs to play wide in the front 3 or wide.
I think of it as more. His instinct is more coming inside rather. You don't think of Adiemo as like a direct hit the flank kind of player. So I
Yeah, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Whether obviously Forster remains in right wing back at the weekend, or Gordon gets his place back. But we have got more options. I mean, we've got 30 players now, so we've got plenty of
Jesus
players.
Christ.
Yeah,
How
to
many of
be a
them are
full.
out of contract out of interest, Sam?
I think we've got about 8 of them on loan, so that's the starters, and then there is quite a few out of contract, and a lot of them, like
Okay.
Vassell was only on contract at the end of the season, Taylor Richardson on contract at the end of the season. So yeah, you've got at least probably near enough half out of contract.
Okay. Right.
But Scott has stated kind of publicly a couple of times now we're one window ahead of where we wanted to be. But we kind of need to see that on the pitch now. Like, if we're one window ahead of where we want to be, and we've only won 6 games all season, it's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, I imagine, condensing the squad will be a big priority, and maybe going for a bit more quality over quantity next season if Crawley, of course, get over the line. Do you think Crawley will get the points that you need to stay? I mean, I think you're better than the teams below you, but it's easy for me to say that because I'm not a fan. I
think opposition fans are probably more positive and more optimistic than the Crawley fans themselves. Do you know what? I look at it and I go, we need 7 wins to guarantee it. So we've got 7 wins from 15. I think April's massive. April is huge. I think in April we play Shrewsbury, Bristol Rovers, and Newport.
I don't think you'll. Sorry, Sam. I don't think you'll need 7 wins. You know, it might be mathematically that's what you need now. Really, you don't think you're going to need 7 wins?
That's 47 points. I think 7 wins and we're definitely staying up. Like definitely, I think 6 is 44, isn't it? And then it's difficult. I think it depends who you beat as well. If we go and beat Shrewsbury and Newport, then we might need 6. So, but 7 definitely guarantees it. So yeah, I think we've got a really tough run coming up now. And I kind of don't really want to be going into April like we were 3 years ago, needing to win at Hartlepool to stay up. So, I think we will, but I don't think it's going to be plain sailing.
Okay, there you have it. Sam, thanks so much for talking to us, and best of luck with getting over the line.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Sam.
Top man, Sam. Danny, I wanted to before we bring in Harrogate Town fan in about 15 minutes' time, I wanted to have a bit of a big picture chat about the League 2 dogfight with you.
All right.
I mean, are we agreed between us that Crawley a little bit of a step above, in terms of performances, the other teams?
Aesthetics, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, purely on the aesthetic front. I mean, it's just. But I've been there myself. When we Salford have played particularly an attractive style that people like us when we were poor, maybe not so much now we're rich. But that's kind of faded. But
they
then
like
it
to
doesn't.
Pat you on the head, don't they?
Yeah.
But well done. You played really nicely.
But it doesn't actually, nothing you can put in the bank there, is there? Because at one point, with a manager that was trying to play an attractive style of football, we were going to the National League, probably never to be seen again, with like only one coming up again if we wouldn't have got a big investor. So yeah, drawing a line under it, I could talk all day on it, but yeah, Crawley to me, it's just, as I said before, the movement off the ball. I just wasn't seeing that from all the other teams that I was looking at in the last week or two. It just wasn't there. It was a lot more mechanical, some more so than others. So yes, it's adventurous. And I like it, and I just think in general they are better, or they look better at the moment.
Yeah, I think mathematically you have to include them in the equation, but I think from my point of view, I don't see it as particularly likely that they go down.
Yeah.
I think Shrewsbury and Barrow, probably particularly Barrow, are the ones where I'm really like, I think they're in trouble, because I think they've relied on Will Stanway and his goalkeeping ability all season. And I think that they gave Paul Gallagher the permanent job off the back of a win at Tranmere, who were injury hit and all sorts of things before New Year. And since that, they've not taken any points from any of their 6 games in 2026. So for me, Barrow are bang in trouble. And they're the ones that I think if I'm in Newport and Harrogate shoes, I'd be thinking, I think we can catch them. Yeah,
well, I mean, I trust me. I know your knowledge on this league is infinitely bigger than mine. It just is. This is what you do, and mine is far more narrow. But in terms of the teams within this scrap, Barrow and Shrewsbury are Newport, I did say, there's a glimmer of hope there. But I do see Barrow and Shrewsbury, and I'm desperate to tell you what I think's wrong at Shrewsbury, but I'll come to that later on.
Well, tell me what's wrong at Shrewsbury.
No, I can't. Have we got a guest on that's coming from Shrewsbury?
No, we didn't actually. We weren't able to get a guest from Shrewsbury.
Oh, no problem. So I'm not stepping anybody's toes. Right. What I think seems to be going on there, and it was something that was flagged up in the commentary of what I watched, and it was echoed by what I saw, is the manager was talking about being ultra defensive. Well, okay, but does that really get you out of the point? Does a point, if that's what you're aiming to get out of a particular game rather than 3, is that enough? And it's almost like, I remember when I was at school, I wasn't great at maths, so I got put into the set where the exam that you could only get a C out of, right? I got a C, but that was my ceiling. So I'm just thinking that in that sense, I think that the ambition there.
You're an A-star guest for me, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. But that's it. I just think that when teams are in a hole like they are, you can try and you can go backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards and become very deep and very entrenched and be solid and try and not concede, which you still will anyway if you get penned back too much.
Sure.
Or you can be more adventurous. And I'll just use a reference point from my own expertise that I saw this particularly with Neil Wood, that we were having a poor time under him in his first season. And we were getting beat, we were conceding a lot of goals. And then he set us up in, I think it was the first time he played a 4-2-3-1 system. And we had either 3 or 4 recognised strikers in that front line. It was a craziness. We got beat 4-1 by Carlisle. I don't know, remember scores. And I thought, he won't try that again. But I was really pleased that he saw that actually trying to move forward and trying to play. And we got to the playoff semi-final that year. From that point,
the Stockport one,
Stockport one. So that was a pivotal game that we tried something different, which was more adventurous. We got beat on the day, but I just wanted to go up to Nicky Butt and say, listen, because he was a CEO at the time, I can see that that's better than it was. And that's what I think that Shrewsbury, in my humble opinion, are going down a totally different track of entrenching rather than attacking. But
that makes a lot of sense. I suppose what I would say is I watched them at Cheltenham on Boxing Day, and I felt like they were trying to play some of these elaborate ideas, but with Sam Clucas and Will Boyle, as opposed to a different profile of player that Michael might have had at Oxford or Lincoln, and so I think that with Gavin Cowan, I agree with you. There was a Barnet commentator who very much felt, Shrewsbury's performance against them in his first game in charge. I really wouldn't want to watch that, and I think that's completely valid. It's not very entertaining, but I can also understand that instinct to sort of say, right, let's get things really tight first, and then try and build from those foundations. I think that's what the idea was.
Time's a ticking though, Gab, you know what I mean? The sands of time are coming. So I agree, get a bedrock of solidity, but every game's a big game, isn't it? So you need something out of every. Could I just mention one of the players that I wasn't particularly familiar with, but from watching him, loved him. Is it Luca Houle?
Yes. Well, he's someone I've always liked from his time at Bristol Rovers.
Yeah, it's what it was. I saw him and I thought, the way he moves, my friend Ethan Ingram is back in town. Remember? you know the.
I remember Ethan Ingram. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's got the same. I think he's in note as also number 2. I think Ethan's not. I don't think he's particularly featured at Dundee this season. I don't think he's had a great time. But I loved it. I think he's Welsh, is he not, Hoole? I believe he is. So I was going to bring him up before we talk about Welsh players. Yeah. I just like the way he moves. He looks like he's got that nice athletic, graceful build about him. And I just thought, he'll do. And then I saw Kevin Burko.
I know he does exist, Kevin Burko.
He does. He doesn't just exist at the very depths of the bench. He actually, because I was surprised. I said so on Twitter when I put out an article that was actually originally written for Rochdale fans when he was loaned there, but I re-edited it and re-released it to Shrewsbury fans, saying he's a starter. He's expected to be a regular starter. Well, he'll be like a kid in the playground with that, Kevin, because he's never had that. He's never had that belief in a manager in him. And he's had some brilliant pre-seasons, normally followed by a rapid injury on the first game, so you never see him. And he's never quite got there. He's always been a bit part player. So we forget about him, as I'm sure you're kind of referencing that most of the league do too. But there's something in him. But his best performances, when I look at it, stats-wise, have always been on loans to National League clubs. So maybe that's an indicator.
Yeah, I just Kevin Burko hopefully can finally show his talent and ability at this level, because he's clearly had a lot delayed for him. But I wanted to come back to your point about Luca Hull. I think he's establishing himself as a bit of a specialist right-sided centre-half, because I think he's very good at quick recovery. That's what you want. Sound on the ball. Got that bit of athleticism.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say if you play him as a right back, he would be especially explosive. I think his game is more about supporting play from behind. But I think that given, if three at the back systems, because they're more common than they were in the Football League, whether Luca Hull can sort of carve a bit of a niche for himself, because I think he suits that role really nicely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a centre back, a right centre back in the three, you can't really do that. But again, going back to the Ingram reference, what we used to do when we played Ethan as our right wing back, we used to have him like we do with Hajj Minogue. Now we played him as a high, wide target man from our goal kicks. And I looked at this lad's build, Hull, and I thought he could probably do that. Whether he can do the rest of the game and operate further upfield and be more of a if you're doubting fullback and you're, then I would severely doubt wing back. But it's just his build made me think that he's probably going to have a decent spring on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, hopefully, good luck to Luca Hull. I do think Shrewsbury look a bit more back to basics. 4 points from 3 games, I think, is a pretty positive return. I'm hopeful to see whether they can just solidify a little bit and maybe just about have enough to pull clear of what I think are 3 poor teams. I'm definitely, I'm worried about Barrow, Newport, and Harrogate. I've got a strong feeling that it's going to be 2 of those 3.
Oh, I get it. One player I'd love to mention as well,
please,
because he absolutely toasted Brandon Cooper when we played them away early in the season. Cabia. I'm not saying that he does it every game. I did see some flickers in what I've seen in recent games. He looks tasty. He came on. Forget which game it was. Maybe Colchester game. I think he came on at half time, and he made Brandon Cooper look very, 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 very bad, which makes me actually realise that I think Cooper's better as a middle centre-back than he is a wide centre-back, even though he can seemingly play on either side. He seems to be better on the left than he is on the right for some reason. That day, Cabia just absolutely ran rings around him and made me think Cooper was a terrible signing. But that was an early hot take that proved to be wrong.
Yeah, maybe Cooper just needs to have a bit more support on either side and not being 1v1s and that kind of thing.
Of course.
Well, I'm delighted to be joined by my Harrogate Town fan, Neil Hurst. Neil, I bet you're glad we're having this chat this week rather than last.
At least I've got something to cling hold of that's remotely positive. Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. So yeah, thank you for the time and for this League Two dogfight conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for giving us your time. I wanted to, so let me start from the macro picture, which is there was a run of 4 points from 19 games, which, regardless of the budgetary limitations, regardless of departures, James Belshaw, regardless of injuries, and regardless of luck, that is a horrendous run of form. And I can see why Harrogate fans were very angry and disappointed at that, and concerned, of course, for the implications of their Football League status. During that time, I was expecting, I don't know whether I was expecting some emotional interviews from Simon Weaver, but he was actually stayed very calm. And he was actually quite positive about performances before that win over Cambridge, and I think it's very difficult for fans to get on board with that when the results were what it was. But I'm curious to know how you look at that. Do you think actually Harrogate had turned a corner with performances and Cambridge was the result of it, or how do you read things?
Yeah, well, if I can start at the start, I suppose. He's gone, as you've alluded to, the best part of 4.5 months without a league win, and
yeah,
it wouldn't be fair if I didn't mention the fact that it's highly unlikely that any other manager has had such a length of time without a league victory, without getting the push, and as a consequence, the crowd has, not even lately, for months, been booing after every game. I think Simon, after every game, traditionally through the, let's call it the good times, walked towards kind of the cop end and, gave the crowd a cheer and a wave, as you would expect normally.
Yeah.
But that's just gone. That's gone probably for the past month. He's not done that because he knows what's coming.
Yeah.
It's probably self-protection. I think also, and again, you touched on it, what probably hasn't endeared himself to the fans is his, I want to say, lack of honesty in his post-match interviews. He's not called out bad performances. He's always protected his players, and I get that. I get that to some degree, but there's got to be a time where you got to stand up and say, you know what, no, it's not good enough, and we've got to try and work harder, or we've got to try and do this. And the final point on the start of this conversation is he's in a unique position that he's the owner's son. So there's always a funny spotlight on him anyway. And the whole idea of nepotism is thrown at him, whilst no other manager has to put up with that, really. I mean,
it's both a blessing and a curse. No other manager benefits from nepotism, and no other manager faces the criticism and the perception of nepotism, which arguably makes it a sort of a net neutral experience, because you have the benefit and you also have the stuff that you have to deal with.
Exactly. But we spoke for a while now, Gab. My glass is normally half full, and I'm glad we're having the conversation now and not a couple of weeks ago, because it's a bit early to say we've turned the corner. But not the Cambridge game. The game before that, we played Swindon Town, and we lost 1-0. But it's the first time in not even weeks, literally months, that we put in a good performance. And the fact we lost 1-0 is almost secondary. I think it's clear the players are fighting for him. I think there's a lot of endeavour. There's a lot of graft. There seems a lot of unity. You can tell when the crowd's booing, Muldoon's coming over and, telling everyone to cut it out. I see that as an absolute positive in this situation. He seems to have the players on his side. But to go back to the Swindon game, a definite improved performance, bolder in his outlook. He has for some time now been really conservative in what he's doing and how he sets up, and that's kind of borne out in our goal scoring, that we're the league's lowest scorers. Again, if we're just ramping up the positivity of the bottom team at the moment, is the game against Cambridge. I mean, it's just one of those funny quirks of the lowest scorers in the league playing the league's tightest defence, and then lowly Harrogate won, but. Cracking performance, well worthy of the victory. But as a lot of the Cambridge fans were telling me, we have history in that 2021 5-4 game where Brendan Kiernan scored a hat-trick that's living long in their memory. So I'm not saying we're quite the bogey team, but they know us and they're wary of us.
Just to talk about spirit, and their heads haven't gone, as you said, Neil, that when I was looking at the last few games, across all these dogfighting clubs, there was no one else pulling out more last-ditch tackles than you lot. Doesn't always come off, because teams get so unlucky that you make a last-ditch tackle that it still deflects to another striker, and then it still gets put away. I'm just wondering, is that something that I'm imagining, or is that something that it seems like your defence is kind of being stretched a lot, but sometimes you're getting out of danger because that spirit is really pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment. We do a lot of last ditch work. I think bodies on the line, chucking themselves in front of it. I don't think that's by accident or coincidence. I think that's engineered. I think he motivates the players to do that. I think as well is there's a lot of newness in that defence when you look at it. Certainly over the last few games, obviously Belly's gone to Pastures New and Notts County, and we've got a new keeper in called Henry Gray, and the early signs are pretty positive. He's certainly been kept busy. His only one error was the goal against Swindon when he came out rather rashly when the ball was going away from goal and
But the penalty.
for the penalty, whipped the lad up. But Gibson has been playing of late at centre half. He's a relatively long-standing player of Harrogate Town, but he's had his injury, so he's only really come back into the fold. Heffernan at centre half, again, new lad in from Newcastle. And Cass has come back in. So the lad we got from Grimsby Town, again, injured for quite some time.
He made a last-ditch tackle, I thought, against Cambridge, didn't he?
He did. And I think that the Terrier, let's call him Folkegan Mark II, is Evans, lad who's coming from Halifax Town, and
he's even got the number 4 shirt.
He does. I've never seen a lad with the engine like it. He
needs to tuck his shirt in next.
no, he does not. That's only for one man only. But yeah, to your point, there is a lot of dogged determination, and I think the players are manifesting themselves in a way that they are doing everything they can for the cause. Whether that's the manager, whether that's the share, whether that's the fans, I guess I'm not too sure. But I personally think the manager is managing them, at least psychologically, in such a way to give everything that they can for the club.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, watching the extended highlights of the Cambridge game, really impressed with, dare I say, some of the fluency in the attacking play, which words I've not uttered with regards to Harrogate for a long time. But two big players who stood out for me were Ellis Taylor and Emerson Sutton. Taylor isn't a new signing because he's been there for a couple of years now, but he feels like it because I think he'd had some time out of the team, hadn't he? And he's recently come back, and I like the way he's kind of jinking inside and looking like, creating on the edge of the box, and I think that looks like a real positive with Reece Smith maybe going the other way, and then you've got Emerson Sutton with that directness. And Aqua being that kind of focal point. So I do see a synergy between those 4 players where you can do something.
Yeah, I mean, the game against Cambridge, that was Ellis Taylor's first start. He came in on a sub in the game before, but he's been out for 3 months. And I don't want to make excuses up. Every club faces injury crises, but ours seems more pronounced than most, if I'm honest, and is part of the reason, at least, why we are where we are at the bottom of the table. But yeah, Ellis Taylor, like a breath of fresh air. I thought somebody had laced my Bovril with something that, I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing. And you're right, it was fluent, it was positive, it was forward looking. The chap Sutton, he reminds me in so many ways of Otto.
Yes, I know what you mean.
The lad who went off to Peterborough. Just like a breath of fresh air, really fast on his feet, quick thinking, bit of, I'm saying knock and run, that might be a bit unkind, but just basically bloody fast. He shifts and he's great. The other chap you mentioned, Aqua up front, he's the only one I'm pulling a bit of a face at. I'm not quite loving him at the moment. He looked all right in the Cambridge game, but in the games preceding that, he's a big old unit, and he doesn't quite win as much in the air as I would have hoped he would have, looking at him. But yeah, time to grow. But yeah, and also the fact he hasn't scored the league goal as well doesn't really do him any favours either. But yeah, to the question about brightness and looking forward, looking at and refreshing, totally yes.
Danny, after the last 2 performances from Harrogate Town, playing very well against the table topper in Swindon, albeit quite a bit falling short in that one, but again performing against Cambridge and getting the result. Two good performances against teams right at the top. Surely from a neutral point of view, that can give Harrogate fresh belief.
Oh yeah, I mean they were two particular games that I watched in detail. So yeah, I mean there was individual mistakes. I think there was a back header from Heffernan. There was like 3 Harrogate players back against 1 Swindon player, and it still ended up in a bit of a, it was a near own goal, I would say. But that's the kind of thing that can happen. I noticed, and again, I do feel the positivity, and I desperately. There's no team I want to stay up more than Harrogate, because that pie situation that you've got is just outrageously, unbelievably good. 13.50 all in.
What better reason? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because I'd missed that. It's the highlight. I always look. I always hope it's a Saturday game rather than an evening game, because it's always more of. It was even New Year's Day, I think, last year. So it was an absolutely brilliant day. But
by the way, on that, I want Harrogate to stay in the league because of Betty's tea shop. So.
Oh yeah, Betty's tea rooms. Yeah,
there's multiple reasons, but they're all good.
Fantastic scones. Yeah, like just very unusually shaped, but brilliant. Yeah. What just on a footballing point of view, funnily enough, again, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Neil. That there's two things that I saw, particularly in the Swindon game, that I started to see a cycle of. That there was, when you get into attacking positions, it seems that your wide players do one of two things. They tended not to cross very much, which might link into what you were saying before about your maybe not kind of holding his weight striker there. So they tended to kind of cut in and play across the box, or literally just a little jink at the edge of the box and try and bend it into the far corner. I saw those two things happening quite a lot, to the extent where I thought, this doesn't seem like an accident to me anymore. Is there anything that you've seen beyond the last few games?
I think you're absolutely right. I think there's very few examples I can think of where he hasn't played one up front. And I think until Aqua arrived, he was often playing Muldoon up front, who's not the tallest of guys. So that whole concept of chucking it in the box, he was, who was a good example? Walsall, Flint, Aidan Flint at the back. We played them, and he that was strangely a game where some balls were getting lobbed in the box, and strangely enough, Aidan Flint was just knocking them all clear, as he generally does. But I think of late, yes, I think that what you've observed is reflective of what happens. I think he likes to keep possession. I think what's been happening is there's been a time where the balls have been getting chucked in the box. They've just been readily being cleared by the centre halves. Mm-hmm. And he's probably weighed up the percentages and thought, playing it backwards, playing it sideways, playing on the outside of the box gives us more of a chance of an opportunity of a shot.
Totally makes sense. I wish we'd actually do it. We've got two strikers at the minute who we're playing quite direct to at Salford.
Yeah.
I mean, our pitch is mainly to blame at home, because it's actually a bit of a mess. But I actually think if we were to play more on the floor and not hit as many crosses in, then we will probably do better. I'm glad your managers actually playing the deck he's been dealt, really, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think the players that we have, it lends itself to that. The lad we got in from Barnsley, Marsh, he scored a goal from tucking him from the outside. Reece Smith tends to do it, coming in from the left, coming in inside. Taylor, certainly, Ellis Taylor scored a good few goals for us by coming in from the outside. So, yeah, the more I think about it, I think that's a trained activity.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Reece Smith, because I think I may have touched on it earlier, but I like the dynamic of having Ellis Taylor on the right and Reece Smith in the 10, because Reece Smith is quite good at making those Reece Smith, I think, is someone who doesn't have to be right in the centre of everything. He's actually quite happy to make runs to create space for other players, whereas Ellis Taylor, it's like he's got to be the guy that you build everything around. And actually it works quite nicely, because opponents are like, well, what should we do with Ellis Taylor, but someone's going out on the outside, and it creates a nice equilibrium, I think. So the relationship between those two I'm particularly excited about.
Yeah, he's been very good this season. I have to call him out. He's generally been on most of the set pieces, but that aside, he's one of the few we've had who's been capable of unlocking the door and trying to break forward. He's happy going on the inside or the outside. The fullback generally doesn't know which way he's going to go. Ellis Taylor normally cuts inside. Yeah, that's quite easy to read, but this lad, you can't read it. He does 50-50. So, I I sound a lot more upbeat than I should do for the team that's slap bang at the bottom. I'm hearing myself talk. It isn't all rosy, but you got to get the positives where you can. Last couple of games definitely improved, and I guess more importantly, you look at the league table. Yes, you might argue we played a couple of games more than some of the other teams at the bottom, but we're not totally cut adrift. And no. I am.
Barrow have lost the last 6. If that wasn't the case.
They're on a bad old run. So there are some within grasp. So if I'm being honest, do I think we'll go down? Yeah, I do. I really do. Okay. That's the honest truth. However, not all hope has gone. There are teams within reach, and if they churn out performances like they have been doing for the last couple, why not? Why not?
Hope springs eternal.
It does.
Absolutely. Neil, thank you so much for joining us, and appreciate your time this evening.
My pleasure.
Cheers, Neil.
Have a nice evening. Ta-da.
All the best.
Danny, just to round it up then, I'm going to have to push you for a prediction, which I know you love making.
So what are we saying now? I mean,
I think it's between Barrow, Newport and Harrogate. I have spoken to Barrow fans on our message group who are very pessimistic about them. I mean, I suppose the argument for Harrogate would be Simon Weaver historically does have that history behind him, whereas Paul Gallagher at Barrow and Christian Fuchs at Newport don't. So you could argue that Simon Weaver, on the basis of history, is he going to do the job?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at this because I know quite a few of these teams have changed managers, and it's like, for me, I always think that when you change your manager, you should be able to get a bit of a free swing, like a bit of a surprise element for a very short period. Is this Fuchs' first managerial position? Has he actually?
I've got a feeling he might have been coaching in Canada or something beforehand, but pretty much, yeah.
But I'm just thinking in terms of like video analysis, nobody could be able to bring up something and say this is what we expect him to do, because if he's never managed a team as the top man before, then it can sometimes mean, I could quote many examples of when I think managers I think you tend to get about 3 games before other managers say, right, this is exactly what they're going to do. And sometimes that can be a good thing, sometimes it can be a bad thing. But that's always, I think, in the team that's changed the manager's favour, or it can be, depending on how it's approached. But if we're going back to predictions, Barrow would be would stay in that position. I can't allow myself to say that Harrogate will. Because I've got an emotional connection with that food. It's just very, very, it's a real memory, that. So football might indicate other things. And I'm going to just say Shrewsbury, like I said, if I believe what I'm saying about the attitude of ultra defense, it's like the ultra defensive approach, that to me spells big danger. And maybe I'm the first one to be the canary in the coal mine to say that. I don't know.
So give me 2 names then.
Barrow and Shrewsbury. I'm going to say it. I don't particularly think Newport have a tremendous amount of redeeming qualities, but that's my feeling at the moment. Yeah.
Interesting. I might go. I might be mad enough, even with Harrogate 1 win in 20. It feels maybe I've spoken to the more positive Harrogate fan and the less positive Newport fan, but I'm going to go with Harrogate to beat the drop at the expense of Barrow and Newport. Right. That's what I'm going to say.
Makes sense.
Listen, everyone, thanks so much for watching. This has been EFL Debate, the League 2 podcast. If you like what we do here, you can subscribe to us on YouTube and on Spotify. And there's also a members-only option where I speak some general Football League topics with Simon Lillibury, and that's available only to our subscribers. So if you'd like to get involved with that and support the channel, you would be more than welcome to do so. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks to all my guests. Thanks to Danny from the One Up Front Salford City blog and Salford City blog, even I shouldn't say Salford, Salford City blog. And we'll see you again next week.